In this video, I'm going to show you how to prepare fabric in order to cut out a design. And to do that, to lay out your fabric, you really need to first identify the parts of the fabric and know what you're working with. So the first thing you want to do is give your fabric, especially if it's very wrinkly, a good ironing. And then after that, you're going to fold it in half lengthwise. So I sometimes say hot dog style. You want it to be folded exactly in half with it being narrow. So hot dog or lengthwise, whatever you want to call it. And I usually put a pin or two in the corners, maybe in the middle, to help make sure my edges are in fact even. And since we're identifying parts of the fabric and kind of talking about it, I wanted to start off with calling this, or identifying what this edge is called. Sometimes you will see a little bit of writing on the edge of this fabric, and sometimes you'll notice like this side of the fabric is so perfectly straight. It's so nicely finished. That is called the selvage. So the selvage is a firmly woven edge, and it runs the length of the fabric on both sides. So you want to make sure that your selvages are even and folded along together. And then you'll notice another part of the fabric. This is that cut edge. This is called the raw edge, or I might say this cut edge, like make sure that's lined up. So your raw edge is not a nice machine woven side. It's whatever has been cut or the end of the fabric. So the lengthwise grain, the grain is the weaving of the fabric. So it's the lines in the fabric. We have lengthwise grain, which runs parallel. I've got little labels, parallel to the selvage. So it's going this way as our lengthwise. And then we have our crosswise grain that is running along that raw edge of the fabric. We also have a bias, and bias would just be that diagonal. And so sometimes patterns say cut this strap on the bias. So a crosswise grain is the section of the weave that runs perpendicular to the lengthwise grain, and the lengthwise grain is running parallel to the selvage. Okay, so before you start laying out your pieces, you want to make sure that your fabric is true to the grain. So it's actually following that weave. So to do that, you can cut a little section near the edge of your fabric, right along where the raw edge is, and pull. And by doing that, you know that it is exactly true to grain, and you're following that crosswise grain. It's kind of satisfying too, because you get to feel super strong when you tear it. But now I know for certainty that I am following along that grain. And then after you have it folded nicely, you know that it's true to grain, you can start to lay out your pattern pieces. So for a tote bag, it's really just a square or a rectangle or a circle. I've had students do it all different ways, but we do have some pretty hefty stencils that are nice that you can always lay out on your fabric. I'll scooch it down so you can see a little bit more. So that is one option. Another option, besides just laying out this and tracing it, would be to take your ruler and decide and draft your pattern. So what size do you want your bag to be, or whatever you're making, you can map it out like that. But we do have commercial patterns, or in this case, a very basic stencil that you can even use just to get started. And when we lay out fabric or patterns, that is, we want to make sure we're not wasting anything. We want to pay attention to that lengthwise grain line. So we scooch our pieces and kind of map it out. This is our strap stencil. Again, it could be any size or width or length, but you want to see if there are ways, and actually this fits, that you can maximize your fabric so we're not being wasteful and still follow the grain line. You would not want to place your pattern piece like this. And this is a very simple stencil, but we want to really make sure you're following that weave of the fabric for the best optimal look of your final design. So in this case, because it is a heavier stencil, I would simply trace it with a marking pencil and then cut it. But in a commercial pattern, you might have more of a tissue paper that you could use to lay out your fabric, pin it in place, and then cut around that. And so that is how you lay out and prepare your fabric.